It's not we are what we eat, it's we are what we absorb.
Today we're joined by Molly Love, our in-house nutritionist here at Check My Body Health, and we're going to be discussing all things gut health.
You might see something, try it for maybe even a few days, a week or so, and you think, oh, that doesn't work. But really, to rebalance the body, it can take us years.
Do you have any tips for people that are starting their elimination diet?
I think the best thing you can do is,
Oh, okay.
if you feel like something is wrong, advocate for yourself and go back to the doctor if you don't feel like the answer is right.
Does having something that you're intolerant to impact the gut lining more than something like sugary, for example?
Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 3 of the Check My Body Health podcast. Quick disclaimer before we start, me and Ben are not claiming to be health professionals. We are here to listen and learn just like you.
However, that is why we bring in the experts. And today we're lucky enough to be joined by Molly Love, our in-house nutritionist here at Check My Body Health, and we're going to be discussing all things gut health. So Molly, how are we doing today?
Really good, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So who actually is Molly? Obviously we're here to talk about gut health, but let's learn a little more about you.
So I'm Molly. So I'm one of the in-house nutritionists here at Check My Body Health. I have a specialism in gut health, especially the gut-brain connection. I myself have Crohn's disease, which is an inflammatory bowel disease. So I have a special interest in gut health for that reason, and found nutrition as a way to improve my own health, both gut health and kind of all body health. And now I work with you guys at Check My Body Health to support our customers with the premium food intolerance test. I have 30-minute consultations to really help our customers maximize the results that they get from the test.
Amazing. Well, we are very lucky to have you on our team. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Shall we just jump straight into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we hear so much about gut health, but can you tell us what actually is your gut, and can you break that down for us a little bit?
Yeah, so gut health is a real buzzword. We hear it all the time. We talk a lot about it as well here at Check My Body Health. Really, gut health is referring to the overall function and balance of the digestive system, the GI tract. So that's the lower part of your digestive system. Our digestive system starts with our mouth because we're chewing and we're swallowing. We've got our stomach. But gut health is really the lower part of our digestive system. So as well as digesting and absorbing nutrients, it really has an effect on all other systems of the body, which is why it can show up in brain fog, it can show up on our skin, it can affect our hormones. So when we say gut health, we are talking specifically about the digestive system, but also looking at how it affects our whole body, really.
So obviously you just mentioned how our gut impacts our whole body. Does that impact, say, things like our mood and how we want to get out of bed in the morning? Does it impact those things as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think lots of us think that our gut and gut health is just about food, which that's obviously really central to it. If we think about it, it's not we are what we eat, it's we are what we absorb. So we need the nutrients from our food for our body to function. So if we're not properly absorbing our nutrients, that's going to have an effect on all of our body systems. So as well as the nutrients, we need to think about our immune system. So lots of our immune cells and our immune system is actually in our gut, and similar with hormones. So a huge amount of our serotonin, our happy hormone, is made in the gut. So there's lots of things that we kind of don't really think about, but those are two, I think, really important examples of how if our gut is out of balance, that can have a direct impact on both our immune system and also our emotions and how we might feel in the morning.
I feel like we don't realise how interconnected everything is, and it kind of all comes back to the gut. I feel like I never really knew that before.
Yeah, I think starting at the gut and seeing that as really central and underpinning so many of issues that we might be having, it might seem completely unrelated, whether it's our skin or it's our mood, but looking at our gut's really key to unlocking some symptoms.
And what are the main gut issues that people have? Obviously, as I'm working as a nutritionist, does any of that come up more often than others?
Yeah, I think the obvious kind of gastrointestinal ones. So it's bloating, it's gas, lots of excess burping, irregular bowel movements as well. You want to find kind of what's normal for you, but often people can be really constipated or have really loose stools or fluctuate in between. And we really want to be having regular bowel movements. We want to be digesting our food without too much bother or too many symptoms.
And that's really interesting, because I feel like you said, we don't realise how much what we eat affects us. And obviously, like, there's so many different things, fatigue, bloating, that go into the gut, and what we eat impacts that. I mean, what are the signs that our gut might be out of balance in the first place? Is it those issues that you've raised?
I think those are the most obvious ones to track, because we can often see that they're directly related to the food that we're eating, and that's its main job. But lots of the other things that you've mentioned, if it's skin issues, it could be acne, but it could also be eczema, psoriasis, things like aching joints. That can also because it's inflammation, and so lots of inflammation. If we've got inflammation in our gut, so myself as an example with Crohn's, when I was really poorly, it's an inflammatory disease, and my knees and my ankles were really swollen. So it can have an impact on systemic inflammation.
Not to be too personal here, but can you tell us a little bit more about Crohn's disease? So I don't really know much about it and what it is.
Yeah, so there's Crohn's and colitis. They're both inflammatory bowel diseases. So that's autoimmune, which means that your body, your immune system is kind of broken, and it attacks its own body cells. So things like Hashimoto's, which is your thyroid, alopecia is your hair. It can happen in all different body systems, and it's when there's almost like a breakdown of communication. It's overactive and it attacks your own body cells. For me, it's in the gut. And you can have basically kind of ulcers and sores and a lot of inflammation, which can lead to not breaking down and utilizing, absorbing food and nutrients properly. And then because of all the ways that we've spoken about, it can affect mood, and you can have brain fog and systemic inflammation like swelling. So it took me about 2 years to get diagnosed, because difficult to find and pinpoint. I was told it was IBS for a long time, so it did take me a really long time to actually get the clinical diagnosis.
That must have been quite frustrating for you.
Yeah, it definitely was, because I think, there's a good lesson in like advocacy, especially when it comes to your own health. And if you feel like something is wrong, then advocate for yourself and go back to the doctor if you don't feel like the answer is right.
It must have felt like a relief when you found out what it actually was and got that answer you were looking for that whole time.
Yeah, massively. Mainly because I was put on quite high-strength steroids that made me feel brilliant.
I was going to say, how is it treated then?
So it was really bad. I was in hospital. So to actually have a diagnosis, you need a colonoscopy. There's a camera up your bum. So they look at, and you can see it as well, actually, your intestinal tract, and they're looking for inflammation and scarring and ulceration. So to clear it up immediately, it's steroids, and then it's immunosuppressants to kind of balance, so suppressing the immune system, which is overactive.
Oh, okay.
So I was on medication for quite a few years, and then I just was getting more curious about food. At the time, I was told that what I ate didn't make a difference, but just didn't make sense to me. So I did a lot of experimentation. This is before I was a nutritionist. Made myself better and worse in different ways. Collecting information from the internet.
Was it a lot of trial and error for you then, seeing what works?
There was a lot of trial and error, yeah. And then I worked with a nutritionist who made me really realize like what was Crohn, because I didn't really know what it was and how my digestive system worked. And then through working with her, I managed to get myself in remission. So with me, the disease is no longer active. I don't take medication, and it's something that I just manage myself.
Is that what made you want to become a nutritionist, that journey you went on?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's really personal to you as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Would you say that's helped your nutritionist journey, having that trial and error beforehand? Has that helped you now when working with clients and navigating their issues as well?
Yeah, definitely, because I understand the experience of like desperately wanting answers.
You can relate.
Yeah, completely. But I also know that, it's a bit of a magpie effect, especially now. Like, there wasn't Instagram in the same way for me at the time, but the overwhelm of information, you might see something, try it for maybe even a few days, a week or so, and you think, oh, that doesn't work. But really, to rebalance the body, it can take us years to get in a state where we might be intolerant to a certain food, or these things are quite chronic. So it can take time, like with our elimination diets, and what I say to a lot of our customers, unfortunately it is time consuming, because when we need to help the body take time to rebalance and reset. And it doesn't work as quickly as steroids, say, or taking antibiotics, which is kind of what we're used to. So it's a different way of thinking, but that's why having professional guidance for someone to explain it to you and keep you accountable and kind of coach you along the way is really beneficial.
I feel like things with diet and like elimination diets and things like that, it's definitely like a lifestyle change, which for some people can be really hard, can't it? To almost keep up with something and to stick to it, because it's really hard these days, especially with all of these, there's so much out there for us. We've got so much option. Like you say, there's a lot of overwhelm with what foods to eat and what, what is good for you and what isn't. So I feel like that's like the hardest part, is this kind of lifestyle change. It's not just like you say, try something for a week and it's cured.
Yeah. And I think we're used to that. It's that old-fashioned diet mentality where it's like a crash diet before you go on holiday or something. But really, you don't want to just be using willpower to do something. You want to really connect. So, well, why am I cutting that food out? Whether it's like just ultra-processed food, trying to cook more at home. And it's not about being good or bad, but it's about just changing your mentality to learn to nourish yourself and what works best for you as an individual.
Are there any warning signs that you tell customers and clients to look out for when they notice their gut is out of balance? For example, sugar cravings or something along those lines?
Yeah, so I mean, there's the really obvious ones like bloating, especially really excess bloating, really excess gas, when anything is extreme. But things like sugar cravings, things like this kind of like foggy head, like some clients, brain fog.
It's really interesting that you can get brain fog from eating things.
Yeah, well, things like, excess sugar and wheat, sometimes anything that we're sensitive to, or when things are ultra processed and our body is just not really equipped to break it down and use it properly, can have a compound effect. And it's not always that, and we can see that in some of the test results as well, it's not always that people eat something and they immediately have a reaction. It can be a compound effect of eating like either too much sugar or caffeine or alcohol, but just could be something that is harmless in theory, but if you're sensitive to it, eating that and having that multiple exposure can contribute to those symptoms.
Would you say that having a food intolerance to something damages the gut more than, say, having too much caffeine or too much chocolate, even if it's okay? Is a food intolerance more impactful, or is having too much of something more impactful?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think if you're doing anything too extreme, it's not going to be great. So yeah, if you're someone that has a lot of food intolerances, really it's not about the food, it's about the resilience of the gut. And so there's damage or a lack of resilience there. So a gut that has a lot of food intolerances probably would also benefit from having less caffeine or sugar or alcohol, things that are inflammatory and acidic.
So does building resilience mean that you don't have to suffer or cut something out forever if you are intolerant to it? You can introduce that back into your diet after a period of time?
Yes. So the kind of key difference between allergy and intolerance, an allergy, if someone's truly reactive to it, they might have an anaphylactic shock, an EpiPen. That's a serious allergic reaction, which generally that's going to be them for life. They need to be really careful. But an intolerance can change. A resilient gut should be able to cope with eating and being exposed to most things. So if during the elimination diet you cut out all of those things that are like upsetting you, and in that time maybe caffeine doesn't flag for you, but you cut that out, you also work on your stress, you sleep well, you have enough hydration, and you build a resilient digestive system, there's a world where when you reintroduce them, it's got that resilience to be able to cope with it a bit more.
And has that all got to do with the gut lining?
Yes, it is very much, the gut lining plays a really important role. We're doing a lot these days in the kind of like modern life and modern way of eating to damage the gut lining, and it does a lot for us. It absorbs our nutrients. It's the only way that nutrients gets in our body from our food, and we put it through its paces quite a lot.
Does having something that you're intolerant to impact the gut lining more than something like sugary, for example?
Yeah, potentially, especially if you don't know and you're continually exposing yourself to it. So sugar that you're not intolerant to, that that is going to also contribute to damage. But it's kind of both. But knowing what you're intolerant to in that moment is really, really useful to just give it the break. And then alongside that, the things that we all know we should be limiting, like the sugar and the caffeine and the alcohol.
The nicest things for most people.
But I think when on that though, I would kind of encourage people to think like, well, often, if we're well nourished and we are happy and balanced in lots of ways, then we don't reach for like the sugar and the alcohol as much. So that's why, it can be quite hard work, but like doing the hard work to think about where you're maybe using food for instant dopamine, in the same way that like over scrolling or like shopping, it kind of like, it ticks that box of dopamine hits. But if we do that, we do it once and it feels nice and it kind of soothes us and we can disassociate. But if we do that continually over a long period of time, then we'll start to see that.
So would you find that doing an elimination diet, which is what you tell a lot of our customers to do after they've got their results, does that help to build that resilience then? Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, so an elimination diet, so for those that don't know, that's when you get your test results back, you will have a number of foods that have flagged as highly reactive. By removing those foods for a period of 4 to 6 weeks, you give your digestive system and your gut lining just a chance to just give it a rest, really, and to rebalance. It would be a really good idea to do things to support it during that time as well.
Like what? What can you do to support it?
So again, like eliminating like the sugar and the caffeine and that, those kind of inflammatory things that we know are going to aggravate it. You can have, really gut healing nutrients so long as they've not flagged in your test. Things like bone broth is really nice. Zinc, aloe vera, really nourishing the gut lining during that time. And then lifestyle things, so like sleep, stress, water, movement, like the really obvious things, and then that will really maximize that time, because it is time consuming to cut things out for that amount of time. And then the second part is reintroducing foods, so you reintroduce them one by one. It's really useful to keep a track of your symptoms, and you reintroduce one every few days. You watch for a reaction.
Okay, so you don't reintroduce them all at the same time?
Because then you don't know, like the ideal world is that you can reintroduce them and your body can cope. But if you do that, you don't know what your body is still reacting to, so you do it one at a time. You watch for the reactions, and then, if there's no reaction, then you bring in the next one.
Okay, that's interesting. I feel like that's the hardest part for a lot of people, to actually cut those things out. Do you have any tips for people that are starting their elimination diet, how to stick to that? Because I feel like mentally that can be a hard battle, like fighting the food noise and the cravings. Do you have any tips for people that are starting it and potentially will struggle cutting those things out?
I think the best thing you can do is plan. So if you're going on holiday soon, don't try and do it then. And just literally plan, look at your diary, look what you've got, what activities are going to be difficult. Make sure you're going to the shop and you're like planning your meals during that time, is what I would say. And then things become easier. Maybe by the 4th week, you can kind of navigate through things and meal times more easily. But just plan, because it is tricky. And, if you're going out for the day, take snacks with you that that you can have, that's on the diet. And if something goes wrong and you end up eating something, don't worry about it. Don't throw it all away. Just get back on it. And, it might be, useful to watch what happens. So adding stress into the mix is not helpful.
Okay.
With removing these intolerances, say I did an intolerance test today and chocolate was completely fine, I could have it. If I did an intolerance test in a year's time, is it possible that my intolerances could change? Can I build an intolerance to something over time?
Yes. Yeah.
And then what would you say to those people who didn't notice it on their first test, and then maybe in a year's time come back to you and say, oh, I've now noticed I've eliminated all these foods, but 6 months down the line, I'm now starting to feel that way again. What would your advice be to those people?
Well, I would be interested to ask someone in that situation what's happened in that time. So I think thinking about people's life holistically, like, things like moving house, a new job, a new child, a divorce, like big life changes can really, really impact us and our bodies and how they work. So I'd be really curious as to what were the main things that happened during that time. And then you just kind of, you start again, you start back to basics. It's like that reset. You just hit the reset button and you start again to build that resilience.
Can those big life changes cause food intolerances then, or do they just affect us kind of mentally and in the gut as well?
Yeah, indirectly. So the thing that's kind of causing a food intolerance is the fact that you don't have, your body can't cope with it, and you're overreacting almost to something that you should kind of be able to process. So if you have a big life event, that is going to interrupt your gut. So the gut-brain connection is something really important to think about, which is why stress is so important with all of these things. So we've got something called the vagus nerve, which is a nerve in our central nervous system. It connects our gut and our brain, and it's like a two-way communication system. They're always talking to each other. So a huge like traumatic event or even just a prolonged period of stress can interrupt our gut microbiome. So that's our good bacteria in our gut, and just make shifts in our gut. That means that we've got a different environment. Therefore, the foods that we're putting in, even if it's the same foods, are received and processed differently.
No, it's really, really interesting. I didn't realize that big life events like that can cause food intolerances and also you to eat foods differently and then react differently in your body as well.
What's your opinion as well? Because I feel like we are living in a more stressful world now, and I think I said this before, there's so many more options available now, but most of them options being super processed, unhealthy foods, but we can get them at our fingertips and they're probably cheaper than the healthier options most of the time. Do you think that's having more of an impact now? People are struggling more and more because of the world that we're living in?
Yeah, I think so. We're very primal, old-fashioned. These bodies are not really, technology is moving quicker than we can adapt to it. And lots of these things are very clever, but we're like ultimately more disconnected from our communities and ourselves. And even things like wearable tech, which can be really useful, but do we really need to outsource that kind of data to something else? Like, we should know if we've moved enough, we should know if we've slept enough. And so I think we're like really outsourcing and not doing that work of looking us inside and connecting with ourselves to work out how we feel.
So let me hide my watch then.
Hide your watch,
your watch off. Molly doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's useful as long as you're using it. And it's the same with any test. It's data, like knowledge is power. But I think sometimes we can overcomplicate and make everything about tech. The way that we, sleep, brushing our teeth, going for a walk. And actually some of the best things that you can do, I think sometimes, is like really stripping it all back. And even within biohacking, like that's interesting, that the world of biohacking, but really that's just about optimize, just go to bed, have good connections with people, eat whole foods, drink water. It's kind of that at the end of the day.
Yeah, so you say keep it simple.
I think so.
Yeah.
Would you say then what you said about keeping it simple with your day-to-day life, then that goes into an elimination diet, for example? Keep it as simple as possible and try not to overcomplicate it with everything else you've got going on.
And overthink it as well.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, it can be difficult because, we get into, changing the way that we've done something for a long time can be really stressful, especially when we don't have the luxury of time to like cook and shop and think about foods that we used to and kind of like eat seasonally. But we want to try and replicate that as much as possible. It can be really overwhelming when you get your test results and you see loads of things on there. I think often it's about taking the time to look through it. Our test is for a global audience, and there's some things on there that some people get really het up about. Oh, I've got this on there. It's like, well, do you ever eat it? No. Well, it doesn't matter. It's not relevant to you. So it's like, what are the things that are the most relevant to you and what can you swap that out for? yeah, and how does it become relevant for you and your actual day-to-day life?
Yeah, and I think that overwhelm kind of goes hand in hand, how we're very lucky to have you guys here. And like you said, our customers can get their results and feel really overwhelmed, but then that's where they've got that appointment with you or Boxy for you to take them through it, to help them understand it further so they don't feel that overwhelm. Could you tell us what a typical consultation looks like with you guys?
Yeah, so we have 30 minutes and we use that time really to optimize the test results. So we'll go through the test results, and then what I'm really interested to know is, well, what has brought you here in the first place? So there's a little mini questionnaire before our call, and I want to know what's brought you here, what symptoms you're experiencing, how would you like to feel, what would you like to get out of it? And then I'll be guided by the customer. So sometimes people really want to go through line by line the test results, which is fine. We can absolutely do that. Sometimes, you've got people, they might be a mum of 4 kids and they're really busy. So it's more about like practical tips, like how are you actually going to change this and where are you going to get this from? What are you going to swap this for? And sometimes people like to work through things like methodically, like throughout their day or their week. And sometimes people have a collection of symptoms throughout the body and they just want to talk about how the results could maybe be affecting like their joints. Maybe they've got have arthritis, like their skin, all sorts really. But it's just about optimizing the test results to make sure that people really know what to do with it.
Yeah, I guess every customer is different as well. We've all got different symptoms, different things that we like. And that's quite nice for you to getting to know people, hearing people's stories, really nice. But that's nice. Oh.
Well, talking of our customers, obviously before we reached out on this episode and started it, we asked on Instagram for some questions for you guys to ask Molly. So let's get into some of those questions now.
Okay, so we've got best easy additions to summer salads to boost nutrition.
Oh, what a nice question.
Topical as well, because we're nearly in summer now.
I think that there are some great things that you can put into salads, but you can go all year round. So broccoli sprouts, so that's sprouted broccoli seeds. So they're really, really potent in antioxidants. You can get them at most health food shops. You can sprout them yourself as well. And you can put them I put them on everything. And then nuts and seeds, you can add, making your own vinaigrettes and dressings. So if you think about a really nice quality olive oil with some apple cider vinegar and lots of different fresh herbs, and you just blitz that, and that's a really nice vinaigrette, but it's not shop bought, so it's not full of preservatives, and it's got all of the goodness in it. So I would say fresh herbs, nuts and seeds, and broccoli sprouts.
Yeah, because I always feel like everybody says that there's more calories in the actual salad dressing that you're using than the actual salad. It almost like makes that unhealthy because of the dressing that you're using.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be so concerned about the calories because there's calories in like olive oil, but it's just like the nutrient density of that sauce.
Okay, next question. What can I do to help manage bloating symptoms?
So with bloating, I mean, doing a test would be really, really useful to try and pinpoint what is at the cause of the bloat. It can be tricky because if something like a food is triggering it, that's difficult to manage. But I think mindful eating is something that is like really slapped on in terms of ways to support digestion. Our digestive system, like it takes so much energy to digest and absorb the nutrients from our food. So if you're experiencing a lot of bloating, making sure that when you eat, you are calm. So not in front of your desk, not scrolling on TikTok. Honey.
Guilty. Me. Guilty as they come.
But giving your body the all the resources that it needs to do that. Chewing your food properly, because that's part of digestion, is like, the mechanical action of chewing. Otherwise, like all of your stomach acid and your enzymes have to work extra hard, and then you have got undigested food, or not properly digested food going through your system. So I would say there's loads of things that you can try. You could buy digestive enzymes, you could do all kinds of things, but the number one thing I would say would be to eat calmly, without distractions, chew your food properly.
That's really interesting. I didn't know about that.
So that's going to be a challenge. I always have to watch YouTube whilst eating. It's like a ritual at this point.
Everybody sits there and they'll put their iPad or their phone or something, or everybody eats in front of the TV.
Yeah.
Like,
but if you think about, like doing more, you can eat with people. So that would be the exception, I would say. Like, communal eating, we used to eat like with your family or with like your, whatever your like group of choice is, and talk to each other, and it would take time and you're having long conversations. Whereas now it's almost like we're kind of trying to maximize efficiency. So distract ourselves or like consume content while eating, and it's as quick as possible. It takes 10 minutes. Whereas really, even in other countries still, like lunch is leisurely and it's a communal activity, but it's definitely better for digestion, and going for a quick walk after you've eaten.
Oh, okay. That
so
can
helpful
help
for digestion and also for blood, to reduce the blood sugar spike of your meal.
We went for a walk before lunch today.
Yeah, the before lunch walk.
But we all sat and ate together, so that was
nice.
Yeah, we had our communal lunch.
We did have
we
a
didn't have our
lunch,
YouTube videos on, and I wasn't on
separate
on TikTok.
Yeah. I'm going, wow, that's really interesting, Molly.
Scroll. Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Any suggestions for fatigue, please? I feel this one. I feel like I'm always tired all the time. Wake up tired.
Yeah. So fatigue can come from lots of different places. Again, that there could be a food that is triggering that, but I think more broadly it's about, okay, well, what is your sleep quality? So lots of people, maybe this person is sleeping a lot, and it feels like they kind of can't quite get enough sleep. Sometimes we are just not sleeping enough, so really making sure that your sleep hygiene is on point. So try and reduce your screen time. Again, you might not like this, but like before bed, try and reduce your screen time and artificial lights before bed to make sure that your melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, gets the right signals so that it can help get you to sleep and get you into that deep sleep. Ideally no phones, near the bed either. So really maximize that. You could think about magnesium before bed. That helps with that melatonin conversion. And then if you're genuinely feel really tired all the time, looking at your B vitamins. So you could get that tested, or you could look at a good quality B complex.
I feel like we spoke about this before, didn't we? It's really unnatural for our phones to be our alarms in the morning. You said how investing in one of those light alarm clocks that kind of wakes you up with the light.
Oh, the natural daylight ones.
Yeah, because your phone's waking you up, and then it's the first thing you're seeing in the morning. You're holding it up and you're turning it off, and that's not natural, is it?
And then that goes into that stress response as well. So our phones create like a level of cortisol for us. And cortisol works in opposition with melatonin. So if we've got too much cortisol coursing through us all the time, which even if we're looking at TikTok, it's giving us a bit of dopamine, but it's probably artificially stimulating our cortisol as well, because we're not meant to consume so much content all the time, and in such short amounts as well. So we're kind of really getting ourselves wired and hyped up and then expecting to be able to go to sleep. So yeah, I would say like really protect your sleep environment in the same way as your eating environment, similar. And then look at things like B vitamins, and think about what are the things that actually give you energy, like for your energy production to work. And as difficult as it is, things like caffeine and sugar that we then use as props can kind of be just masking things.
I love that phrase. I feel like we learned that last week, sleep hygiene. I love that. I didn't hear that until
in our previous episode we did a big part on sleep hygiene, and we didn't know what that was, and now we're like, oh, sleep hygiene.
But we know the word hygiene is like you're actually really looking after yourself, aren't you? It makes so much sense.
And I think, like you said about the caffeine, it's so difficult. I feel like everyone's got their morning coffee, and I'm very much an energy drink person as well, but I think it does, like you say, mask that, we've not looked after our sleep enough, so now we need these things to seem like we're helping ourselves out in a way.
Yeah.
Have you any guidance on pure vitamin C powders have been recommended? I've not heard of vitamin C powders. Is that like the things in your drinks?
Oh, yeah, I've one of those.
Because I have them every day as well. I love them. But are they any good?
I mean, so that could mean so many different things. So I think, are you talking about like a Berocca?
Yes, I love a Berocca.
So with the fizziness, I think vitamin C powders can be great. It just really depends on the form.
Okay.
So I would think about you're familiar with the concept of ultra-processed food. So you can have ultra-processed supplements as well. So we want to make sure that if you're having a powder, there are some food-grown supplements, and it's literally powdered like acerola cherry, which is this cherry that's really, 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 it's a berry, very, very, very high in vitamin C. And you have that dried and powdered. And then that is a natural powder that is really high in vitamin C. Ascorbic acid often comes in a powder. So you want to think about like the absorption. Sometimes having something in a powder is easily like digested and absorbed in a capsule. But again, I would look at the ingredients. That could mean lots of different things. So I'd need to look at the ingredients specifically. But yes, vitamin C powders are widely available. But I would say, you know, a natural, like an acerola cherry powder is going to be a lot more effective and expensive, but more effective than a Barocca.
Okay, so we've got one for the matcha girlies here. This is a crucial one. Is matcha actually good for me?
Yeah, so yes, matcha is great for you. It's really high in antioxidants. The thing that I would say is you need to be careful. Like with anything, matcha now can kind of mean lots of different things.
It's an aesthetic now, isn't it, matcha? Everyone loves
matcha
it.
Is an matcha is an aesthetic, but I would think about where you're getting it from. So matcha powdered green tea that's pure has lots of great benefits, but sometimes if you go into a cafe, you don't know what's in it. And if you're having matcha powder that also has some kind of powdered sugar in it, maybe has some milk powder in there, vanilla, it often already comes with vanilla and you can't, extract it. If you're putting like vanilla syrup in there, if you're having like oat milk with lots of oils, then it's a very different thing. So yeah, matcha in its purest form is a great addition, but think about what else is going into the matcha latte that you are buying from the cafe.
Okay, so we can drink matcha, but don't add all of the crap into it.
Matcha is very bitter, so I see the desire to make it much sweeter, but you need to be careful because what I wouldn't like is people thinking they're being super healthy, but actually there's a health element to it. But if by the time they've added all the syrups and, ultra processed, maybe oat milk that's full of oil, then that's no longer a healthy drink.
So lots of people have milk products, cow's milk come up on their report. And a lot of people are swapping out their milks now for alternatives. Is oat milk a good alternative to cow's milk? Because that's what a lot of people are swapping for now.
So there's a huge industry of plant-based milks and milk alternatives. What I would say is, like with anything, it's really important to read the ingredients. So milk has a high fat content, which is why it froths. And so to get plant milk to behave like cow's milk, there's often added fats, and they do that by adding vegetable oil. So sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, which is not healthful. It's not something that we should be drinking, especially if you have digestive issues. So looking for brands that don't have that added oil, where you've really got the oat or the nuts, and it's literally just that and water and a bit of salt. That's what we need to be looking out for. It's not as sweet because it doesn't have the oils in it. Sometimes it's not behaving. It's not as milk-like. But what I wouldn't want, similarly with the matcha, I wouldn't want someone to think they're making a healthy swap, but actually they're essentially just drinking lots of oil.
So when you're going to buy your oat milk, it's looking at the back for the ingredients. And what do I want to look out for? You
want to avoid rapeseed oil or sunflower seed oil, any oil really. So it should be, if it's oat milk, oat, water and salt.
Okay, so be mindful when buying the oat milk. Don't just fall for the main brands that are there. Actually look what's inside of it. Oh, you wouldn't even think that. You just buy an oat milk and think that you're doing the right thing, don't you? When actually you're probably getting more bad from it.
Yeah. You think that oat milk's the easy swap out, but then when you look into the ingredients, you realise it's actually not helping you at all. It's maybe even doing worse than previously. So yeah, looking into those ingredients.
Because you said how rapeseed oil can come up on the report as well, can't it?
Exactly. So I think often we look for the big hitters like the dairy, but we could also be reacting to the rapeseed oil or some of the preservatives. So we've got a preservative section on the test, and because they're E numbers, essentially, I think sometimes people gloss over them, but actually it's always worth looking at that versus what we're eating, because something like an oat milk can have preservatives in it, and if we're having a little bit of that every day, okay, you might not have the milk that you're reacting to, but you could actually be swapping out one thing for another.
That's really interesting. I had no idea.
Well, the final question we've got on here is, how bad is fast food for me? And is there any good fast foods or better than bad but fast foods?
Okay. So fast food, I want to think about like, why is it bad? So it's bad because we think it's bad because of the quality of the ingredients. So it's the ingredients, and it is how they've been stored and preserved and then delivered to you. So it's often a lot of preservatives, a lot of additives, and then a lot of oil. So generally things are fried, again, in like vegetable oil, and it's generally also low in nutrients. So yeah, it's ultra processed in lots of different ways. Obviously, there's lots of examples. If you are getting like fast food or a takeaway, it's thinking about, you can look at individual websites. Maybe if it's chips, look at chips that are fried in beef tallow rather than vegetable oil. So that is less pro-inflammatory. Or can you get something that is legitimately like fresher? I think the thing is with anything that you're not making is that there's so many unknowns. So if you're going to do that, if you are getting a lot of fast food, or can you control things? Like, what information can you get about where are they getting their ingredients from and how are they actually making the food?
So there's some positives in the bad of fast food then, or is it all doom and gloom?
It's not, wouldn't say it's doom and gloom. I wouldn't say there are positives. I think if you are, perhaps if there is like a local, like last night I had a Vietnamese that was local to here, and that is like a vegetable broth that they've made on site, and it's full of vegetables. I had some noodles in there, some mushrooms, some tofu. So, again, I don't know how they're making that. So if I wanted to be really rigorous, I could go and ask questions, but I know that I made that choice because it was that or like a pizza and chips. So it's like there are situations where you're traveling or whatever, and you need to get something convenient, but it's just about knowing that there are some choices that you can make in that's not always defaulting to pizza and chips and fried
things. Being mindful.
Yeah.
And also not eating it every single day. Having it once, is it that damaging? Can you just have it one McDonald's? Is that
one McDonald's or what?
A week?
Or
a month?
Okay, one McDonald's a month. How bad is that for me?
It really depends on like the
or
rest of your
McDonald's
concept.
Is the devil?
I mean, McDonald's is not a healthy thing. That's not like there is nothing positive about it. But if you're having one McDonald's, but you're saying to me,
it's only one a month.
It's one a month, but it just depends on the context of the rest of your like diet and your lifestyle and your environment.
Okay. No McDonald's.
Like it's compromise. It's like should be 80-20. So if you live by 80-20, 80% of like the food that you eat, is minimally processed, that you're eating it yourself. And then 20% of the time you've got more leeway for maybe at McDonald's when you want it, or you're going on holiday and so like you want to eat what you want on holiday. But keeping generally to 80-20, and I think it's good to check in and review like, have I been doing that this week or this month? And that also comes down to sleep. 80% of the time you really need to be getting 8 hours of sleep. You need 2 liters of water. You want to be, not super stressed all the time.
What are your top tips for not being stressed? If it all comes back to stress, what are your top tips? What would you recommend for really stressed people living quite stressful lifestyle, stressful jobs? What do you have any tips for people that?
So I think with stress, like we've talked about digestive resilience, but there's also stress resilience. So there's stress, and there's stressors, so the things that are stressful, and then there's stress resilience. It's like how we cope and process with those things. I think taking time throughout your day, we've talked about sleep hygiene. So how you start your day starts the night before. So if you've got a good night's sleep and then you wake up and you don't have your phone next to you, you've woken up with like a natural light alarm clock, you do things to keep your nervous system calm throughout the day, that's going to be a huge help. And then taking time to check in throughout the day, give yourself a moment, like whether it's around meal times and you're like, okay, this is sacred, I'm going to use this time, no screens, to reconnect with yourself. And then, there are so many resources. I think if you're someone that really is struggling with stress and feels really stressed and overwhelmed, then getting some like additional help, whether that is like talking therapy or whether that's something like acupuncture that can really could support the nervous system. Journaling, like reflective practices that's like, okay, why am I feeling so overwhelmed about this? And things to help you process the real life events. And then things like magnesium, vitamin C that is useful for stress and overwhelm as well.
And that all links back to the gut.
It all links back
Everything
to the gut.
goes back to the gut. It is crazy though how everything is linked. Like, I find that crazy, and I feel like I didn't know that before I started learning a lot more. You don't realize, and I find it crazy that your happy hormones are all produced in the gut as well. Like, it just shows how interconnected we are and how important it is for what we fuel our bodies with. Okay, so we like to finish each podcast episode exactly the same with every guest. We ask each guest the same question, and that question is, what is one piece of health advice that you live by and you would like our audience to know?
So for me, I'm really trying to concentrate on supporting my nervous system at the moment. We've got two arms to our nervous system. We've got rest and digest, and we've got fight and flight. And if we're constantly stressed and in fight or flight, we can't rest and digest. So I'm really trying to keep myself in that mode all the time. I'd really encourage others to do the same, especially around that idea of keeping meal times quite sacred. And then the other thing is just to reduce ultra-processed food as much as possible. It doesn't matter if you're keto, paleo, vegan, just get in the kitchen and cook from scratch as much as you possibly can or is feasible for you.
That is a great piece of advice, and we will be telling our next episode that.
So if you're watching this whilst you're eating, make sure to go for a walk.
Put it down. Put the phone down. Turn it off.
You can listen. You can listen to things.
Yeah, you can listen to our podcast, but don't watch it.
Turn the phone over for this last bit.
But keep playing it though. Don't
need the
turn
stream.
us off. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Molly, for coming on today. We've really enjoyed having you on and learning more about the gut. And if anyone watching raises any concerns about what we've talked about, or want to find out more, make sure to go to checkmybodyhealth.com to find out more. Thank you very much, Molly, for joining us on episode 3.
It's really nice.
We're very lucky to have you. And with our premium test, if you get that, you can get a one-to-one consultation with one of our nutritionists. So we'll hopefully see more of Molly.
If you've been dealing with digestive symptoms and you're looking to get to the bottom of them, our premium food intolerance test comes with a free 30-minute consultation with either me or one of our other nutritionists, and we can help you get into the results and work out how to integrate them into your everyday life for hopefully long-term symptom relief.